We are live.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March Planning Committee members. Please, we've now convened. This being the March Planning Committee meeting. Lisa, have you taken the roll call?
Through the chair, roll has been taken.
Thank you very much. Is there any member of the committee that has to make a declaration of pecuniary interest regarding, this is 2 items on the agenda today? Please physically raise your hand. No raised hands. So members, does anybody want, I guess there's only 1 item, isn't there, beyond the hearing? 2, okay. Does anybody want the items, the 2 items beyond the public hearing separated for discussion purposes? Nope, not seeing any such request. So if I can get a mover and that seconder, moved by Councillor McCurry, second by Councillor Sluss. And that's to approve items 6.1 and 6.2 that have not been separated for discussion purposes. So I'll call the vote.
Yes. All items not separated for consideration and consent carry on a recorded vote of 6-0. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sokoli, Sluss, McCurry, Carpenter, Van Tilburg.
All right, so move on to the statutory public meeting portion of our planning committee. And so we have 1 item on today's agenda. The public meeting is held in accordance with the provision of the Planning Act. The purpose of the hearing is to discuss the planning application, to hear from the public either in support of or against the application. At the end of each public meeting, the committee will then pass a recommendation, which is generally considered for final decision at the next meeting of council, which typically is the last Tuesday of each month. The name of anyone who speaks in regards to any item will appear in the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing notice of any further proceedings regarding the applications should also provide their name and address to the clerk's office. We ask that members of the public in attendance today speak to an item. Please ensure that you add your contact information to the sign-in sheet. So the procedure we follow is the applicant speaks first, followed by municipal staff, and then the public. Each will have up to 10 minutes to speak, inclusive of questions from the committee. The applicant will then have up to 5 minutes to provide clarification to any questions or issues raised during the course of the public hearing. As a reminder, the following rules of decorum apply as set forth in the city's procedural bylaw, and they are: 1, no person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with any presentation to be made to the committee. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing committee shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak to any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So we'll now move to consider item 4.1. 4.1 is an official plan amendment OPO 523 and a zoning bylaw amendment PZ 2023 for property at 107 Sinclair Boulevard. So I'll now call up the applicant to speak to the committee regarding the application. Odette, I believe that would be you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
That working? Great. Good morning. My name is Odette Gomes of Arcadis Group. I'm representing the applicant this morning. So I am here in support of staff's report and their recommendation for approval. Next slide, please. So the property currently includes 115 Sinclair and 107 Sinclair. So it's one property that has 2 municipal addresses. The subject of this application, though, is just for the piece on 107 Sinclair, which is the piece on the right-hand side there of the slide with the star on it. So the piece at 115 Sinclair currently has an industrial bakery on it, and 107 Sinclair is currently vacant. The 107 Sinclair piece consists of approximately 5.72 hectares in size. The lands are located south of Sinclair Boulevard and north of Highway 403. So next slide, please. So the proposed development includes the construction of 2 3-story office buildings, each having a gross floor area of approximately 5,580 square meters. 428 parking spaces are proposed, 16 of which are accessible spaces, and access is proposed from St. Clair Boulevard. So the applicant for this site is an existing established business, and they specialize in transportation, distribution, and logistics. And they're seeking to expand and to relocate their business to Brantford, a portion of their business. So they're looking to include a new head office here in Brantford, and this is the ideal site for them right now. And this proposed development will help support their future needs. So all the required studies and reports have been prepared for this submission, and they all support the proposed development. Next slide, please. So in order to facilitate the proposed development, an official plan amendment is required. It's required to change a portion of the lands to prestige employment to be able to permit the 3-story buildings that we're proposing, as well as to maintain some of the core natural areas. A zoning bylaw amendment is also required to support this development, and we're asking for a change in the zoning from general industrial zone M2 to holding business park industrial exception 12 zone. Next slide, please. So the proposed development is designed to avoid the western portion of the subject lands and the adjacent Fairchild Creek stream. To safeguard the preservation of natural features, a buffer area has been provided and has been confirmed by a slope stability study. These lands will remain protected. An environmental impact assessment was also conducted that confirms that the proposed development will not create negative impacts on the natural heritage features. The redesignation of the subject lands to a prestige employment area will allow for the City of Brantford to contribute to the provincial objective of municipalities designating and preserving lands within settlement areas located adjacent to or near major goods movement facilities and corridors, including major highway interchanges as areas for manufacturing, warehouse, and logistics. The subject lands have been identified as part of an existing employment area, which contributes to the overall economic output of the municipality and province. As the City of Brantford grows in population, the spaces that contribute to the economic viability and long-term success are important. The proposed office buildings on these lands recognize this need and directly contribute to supporting job growth along with population growth. And next slide, please. So it is my opinion that the proposed development represents good planning, and we ask that you support our request this morning. I'm happy to answer any of your questions and provide you with any clarification.
So members, anybody have any questions? We'll start with Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome, Odette.
Thank you.
The picture, the rendering that you're showing, is that of one building or is that split in the center there when there's, is that one building or is that one of two?
Through the chair, yes, it's one building, so both buildings will be identical. There'll be two
Okay.
buildings.
So that's one of two that you're showing a
That's
picture?
correct.
Okay, and is that all purpose built for that company or is there
Yes.
some going out for leasing?
No, at this point, it's all purpose built for that company. It may not even be enough to service their needs, so they are looking at potential other sites as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thanks, Odette, and wonderful job on this development, by the way. I know we've been through it from the very beginning, and there was some concerns about what the placement of the buildings, and you've adjusted that. The buildings are at the front. They're facing the highway, so it gives us great exposure to the design. In the drawing rendering of a building, it showed a parking lot in front of it. That won't be the case here because the parking lot's behind it, right?
Through the chair, yes, that's
And-
correct.
And for my colleagues around the table, that development sits down below the other developments on Sinclair. And so actually the sight lines for the developments on Sinclair will not be blocked by this development at all. That was one of the concerns of some of the development behind it. And I showed them the drawings and the height and they were
Councillor
quite, they're
Carpenter,
quite
getting
thrilled with it.
getting
So
to a question?
is this, that's correct, is it not?
Through the
How's that?
chair,
You know, I'm always gonna throw that at the end. Want to make sure it's clear that my understanding is correct.
through the chair, yes, you are correct.
And thank you for such a great job.
Thank
on
you
this.
for the
Thank
question.
Councillor McCurry.
Longhorn Distributors is the name of the company.
Yes.
What do they distribute?
Produce, so they specialize in produce. They also have logistics department that moves around produce, transportation. They have all kinds of things that they're operating within their existing companies right now.
So transportation company locating next to the 403.
They're-
Not rocket science, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yes, and thank you for the presentation. It looks quite fascinating, in fact. I have a question, though. You mentioned some core natural areas are going to be affected. Can you kind of point out on your diagram, the area that it is that's being affected?
Through the chair, if you can, I don't know if somebody can pull back the presentation. So that map is also in your report. So the piece that's shown in color in green, so that's the piece that is protected. So those are the lands that are going to remain in the natural core, and we've protected them. So there's a buffer that's also been provided. And it has been already confirmed through a slope stability study that we've done. We've done an environmental impact assessment as well. So all of those lands that are there in green, those are the lands that are going to be protected. We're staying.
Yes, that's not my question. My question is, what is the area that has been removed that it was protected?
So in the official plan, in the new official plan, the entirety of the lands were put into the official plan as natural core areas until such time that the environmental could be prepared, like all the field work was done to determine that not all of the lands are need to be protected.
And is it of your opinion then that the green area that is cordoned off is to be protected in the future?
That's correct. So the piece that's green in that diagram that you're looking at, all of those lands will remain protected and will remain designated and zoned to be protected for natural.
I
areas.
appreciate that because I was just making an assumption based on the transition of your driveway coming in, that perhaps that green zone went straight up to where the driveway entrance was. And so my thought was to move the driveway, but if that's the case, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Appreciate it.
Ted, I have a question.
Yes.
We are not often blessed with Planning Act applications for head offices. This is great to see. So question for you. Is the fact that Brantford has an airport, is that a factor in this owner of this building or the owner of this business deciding to set up a head office here?
It definitely is a factor, plays into it. There's a lot of great reasons to come to Brantford. Brantford has changed a whole lot, offers a whole lot more than it ever did before. So Brantford was always very high on their list to be able to come here, and they're very excited to have this opportunity and to be able to come to Brantford and grow here.
Right. And the airport being one of those factors.
Absolutely.
All right. You're a great salesperson for Brantford, Odette. Councillor Carpenter, we got time for one more question.
Yeah, the green space that we're talking about here, when you're speaking to the owners, see if they're interested in allowing people in the community to plant trees on that green space. It's not full of trees now, but we're always looking for places to plant trees, and this would be an ideal spot to plant a mini forest.
And through the chair, so there is going to be a lot more tree planting in that area. So there's trees that are going to be removed from the site, and we will be adding more trees. But I'm sure that's something that they'll definitely welcome. More
Be a good
trees
pub-
are always,
Be a good public relation for them once
Better.
their head office is all set up. Thanks.
absolutely. Thank
And
you.
when will they be in the ground?
As soon as you give them a building permit, they're ready.
Okay, I knew that. Thank you.
All right, that takes up the 10 minutes. I don't see any other requests for questions? Thank you very much, Odette. And please hang around because you get your opportunity for 5 more minutes after we hear from the other parties to the public hearing. So now I'm going to move to staff, and I believe, Sean, you're the staff person that's going to be making the presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sean House, and I'm a senior planner here at the City of Brantford. I'm here because we've received an application to amend the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw at 107 Sinclair Boulevard. And as we've heard, this is to facilitate the development of 2 3-story office buildings. The subject lands are located south of the Sinclair Boulevard cul-de-sac and north of Highway 403. They have a lot area of 14 acres and a lot width of 74 meters. The lands are currently vacant and the topography is generally flat, aside from sloping towards a tributary of Fairchild Creek, which runs along the northern and eastern borders of the property. The subject lands are surrounded by industrial uses in all directions, and Highway 403 to the south. Here's a photo of the subject lands that I took from close to Sinclair Boulevard. So this would be at the north of the site looking south. Another photo of the site from the north end. This would be looking east and generally showcases the tributary of Fairchild Creek and the associated slope with it. And last, this photo was taken from the southern edge of the property. It's looking across the 403 to some of those existing businesses on the other side. Again, here's a site. Oops. Here's a site plan of what's being proposed. 2 3-story office buildings, each with a gross floor area of approximately 5,580 square meters. Associated parking for 428 vehicles, as well as some bicycle parking spaces. The buildings are located centrally on the site, slightly south, and highlighted in green here on this slide will remain green space. And again, here's the rendering just to give you a sense of of what's being proposed and the attention to building design that's being given. So the lands are currently designated core natural area in the official plan, and the applicant is proposing to amend this to prestige employment. And through staff's review, it was determined that a portion of the property that buffers the tributary will need to remain as core natural area, but the remainder can be redesignated as prestige industrial or prestige employment, sorry. So this designation does permit office uses up to a maximum of 4,000 square meters. So while this is slightly above this, staff consider the proposal appropriate given the proponent's logistics and transportation operations, which are permitted uses in the area. So this will all be implemented through a modified policy area in the official plan. The prestige employment designation does require a high standard of building design, which was shown on the previous slide, that the buildings will exhibit these characteristics. It's going to create a nice prominent gateway into the city of Brantford along the 403. The lands are presently zoned general industrial area, and the applicant's proposing the business park industrial zone, with a special exception to accommodate the proposed lot coverage, number of loading spaces, and minimum building height. The holding provision will ensure that the appropriate studies have been taken place before development occurs, and I'll speak about that in my next slide. And then the remaining area will be zoned as open space type 3, which will align with the remaining core natural areas designation. So in staff's review, in staff's review, it was determined that a few points of clarification will need to be made to the environmental impact study. And that a land use compatibility study, a slope stability study, and an archaeological assessment will need to be finalized. Therefore, they've been made a condition of holding, and development will not be able to take place until these studies are provided to the satisfaction of staff. I'd like to conclude that this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, and the city's official plan. The proposal promotes good economic development and is going to accommodate a significant number of jobs, which will assist in reaching the city's targets. And planning staff recommend that official plan amendment OP 0523 and zoning bylaw amendment PZ 2023 be approved. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Sean? Councillor Sloss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, you indicate, Sean, that it says that it will help us achieve the employment target, or I forget the exact wording you used. Do you know how many people are working in this? Has that been part of your discussion?
Through you, Chair, the job targets in the city is 80,000, so it's going to contribute to that. We've been provided with floor plans of what these office buildings will look like, and there's, you know, hundreds, if not over 1,000 desk spaces in those floor plans.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Thank you, Mayor. The presenter mentioned that this build and that it may not actually meet their needs, and they could be looking for even more land to build more office space. My question is there a limitation on how high they can build in this property zone? Is it only 3 stories, or could they go more if they had to?
So through you, Chair, the current maximum building height in this zone is 15 meters. And they're proposing a 19-meter tall building. So they'll be capped at that 19 meters as part of the implementing zoning bylaw.
I understand that. That's to get the 3 stories. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So they're saying that this build may not be enough to meet their needs. Was there anything that would restrict them from having to going higher?
Through you, Chair, we haven't assessed that at this time, and we'd have to, you know, look at it with a bit more detail on a site plan before commenting on that.
All right. And the number of parking spots is over 400. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's assumed that people that are parking there are driving there from their residences. I just don't want the irony lost upon us. That's often people don't have a place to park their car when they drive home on some of what our new builds are, because we are reducing the amount of parking in those new builds. Clearly, people are driving to their work as well. Thank you very much.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean, great work on this file, by the way. This 3 stories or 19 meters, I guess, as it is. Some of the reasons for that limitations is the other buildings on Sinclair. We've requested that they build the frontage facing the 403 because they represent the city, being at its prestige industrial area. That won't restrict those sight lines, will they?
Through you, Chair, no, it won't.
No, and so that's some of the reasoning for this logic. So the design really fits quite well. So I want to congratulate staff for working with the development and with the planner for what is a prestige development. It's also right across the road from the other prestige development, the Vicano development, industrial park, which is prestige as well for the way it faces the neighborhood, right? So it's the entrance from the east side in the city of Brantford. So it's very important that we have maintained the prestige. So thank you for the file.
Councillor Sloss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Sean. Sean, does this application totally build out this piece of property?
Through you, Chair, yes, it does.
Okay. There's no room to put anything else on it.
It would need to be redesigned, but what they've shown is
Okay, thank you.
maximizes the property.
Yep.
Okay, thanks very much, Sean. Appreciate that. So we're now, now the floor is open to members of the public who want to speak either in support of or in opposition to this application. Lisa, do we have anyone who has registered virtually?
We have no virtual registrations, and there are no virtual attendees in the meeting.
All right. And I don't see any members of the public present, but I'll have to ask twice over or 3 times over. So again, is there any member of the public who is present today that would like to speak to this application, either in support of it or in opposition to it? Please come forward. So I'll ask a third and final time, if there's any member of the public who is present today that would like to speak to this application, either in support of it or in opposition to it, now is the time to come forward. Since there's no one here, I'm not surprised that no one has come forward. So now go back to Odette. Odette, you have up to 5 minutes to provide clarification. I think a couple of us probably have some questions coming out of the staff application. So you can come forward now, please.
Thank you. So just a couple of things that I think I'll just touch on. So yes, we have maximized the site. We did look at everything to see how much we could get here and make sure that we were using the full potential. We have maximized, kind of gone even beyond the allowed office space for this area. We have provided adequate parking. We actually have 46 parking spaces that are extra above and beyond what the site, what the policies require us to do. So I think we have looked at it. We've asked for a little bit more height in the building, like from 15 to 19, simply just for the design, for us to be able to produce something that was a little nicer, a little more prestige, a little better. And again, just keeping in mind the height, just to ensure that it fits with all the existing surrounding areas. So I think we have done that. It's something that we actually spent a lot of time looking at, making sure that we maximized the site and got the best out of this site. So I think that's kind of where we're at. If there's any other clarification questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Councilor Carpenter?
Odette, I know it wasn't talked about, but this company provides facilities for their employees too, like recreational facilities. They have a workout room, exercise room. Like they are very progressive as far as how they maintain their employees.
You have
And
a
some of the
question,
space-
Councilor Carpenter.
So some of the space is for that, is it not?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
You gotta be patient, Mr. Mayor.
This is actually a really, really great employer. It really is. If you've ever toured one of their facilities, it's incredible what they offer their employees. They are huge on having indoor spaces, indoor amenity spaces. So yes, they do have workout rooms. They have nap rooms. They have chefs that come in and kind of cook for them. They have outdoor amenity spaces. Like when we were designing this, when we were working through the floor plans, if you look at the floor plans that were submitted, you can see all the indoor spaces that are provided, even the washrooms, have shower rooms. There's all kinds of things. This is really, truly an ideal employer, quite honestly.
Thanks, Odette. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that gets pointed out. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Slass?
Where do you apply? Are they, I guess all kidding aside, will they be hiring locally or will it be a relocated workforce?
Through the chair. So definitely will be hiring locally. They have, they're renting out some space now in the county of Brant in the Brant Business Park from Carson Reed. And they've kind of just outgrown that space as well. So some of those employees would be coming here, but they're also looking to expand. So definitely looking to expand locally.
Have they shared with you how many employees they expect to have in these 2 facilities?
I don't have those numbers at this point, but I can tell you it's a lot.
Great. And I think you suggested earlier perhaps they're looking for other opportunities within the city's confines to do warehousing or more office?
Probably both.
Both? Great. I can tell you, just on a personal note, look, well, I'll wait till we get to the debate. Thanks, Odette.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions just to clarify. So
Sure.
how many people will be employed in this building? I'm hearing 500, 1,000, but
Yes,
somewhere between 500, 1,000. So are there enough parking spaces? I think there's 489.
yes, and not everyone will actually work in the buildings as well, right? So they have people that work from home as well.
Right.
So they employ there's different opportunities, or some people that come in today but don't come in tomorrow, hybrid situation. So there's a little bit of everything. So that is something that they definitely looked at. And we also provided extra parking that was done intentionally. So we have looked at their needs. They have done those analysis. It's based on a business that's existing, so they know what their needs are. So it's very specific what we've designed.
And through the questions, we kind of skirted around it, but in terms of 3 floors, does it make sense to go to 4, given that you're telling us that this space, these 2 buildings may not be enough to accommodate all of the head office employees?
We've looked at that. And again, it's just by making all of the numbers work. So again, we've exceeded the allowed office space for this area. Then we'd have to look at parking again. So we don't want to have an issue with parking, and then providing all the amenity spaces that they want. So like all the ratios and everything work for what they've designed. Like this is a building that they've also designed elsewhere, and it works for them. So we've looked at everything, and they won't be growing all at once, right? We'll be building the first building and then moving on to the second one, and then looking at another phase down the road as well.
Last question, is there any other, so they have office space right now in the Brant Park, in the County of Brant. Anywhere else, or is it just in the Brant Business Park?
Victoria, that's where their head office is right now. And then in the US, they have several offices in the US as well.
And that's Victoria, not Victoria,
Victoria, VITT.
down to where it's Simcoe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so thank you very much, Deb, and we'll now move on to debate this this application. So the public meetings are now closed. And Lisa, if you could please put on, share on the screen what the resolution is recommended to be, which essentially is to approve the planning application and place it into holding category subject to certain assessments and studies being done. So if I can get a mover and seconder for the resolution that we have on our screens, moved by Councillor Carpenter, seconded by, who's going to let this second? Councillor Celeste, I'll let you second it. So floor is open for discussion. Councillor Carpenter.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a while now, in a couple of different iterations of the site plan until we come to this one, which actually works for all the businesses in the neighborhood whose frontages face 403. Doesn't impede on any of those. And I've spoken to those industries around. They're quite happy with this development and are in approval. It's one of the nicest developments we've seen in a long time. Business park development, high prestige business park development. Councillor Hunt and I deemed the board meeting wasn't necessary for this. It's in an industrial area and it has no impact on any of the residents surrounding it. And speaking with the business owners around this particular site, they're very much in favor of this design. And it does, for those who don't know, it goes down a hill, it goes down in front. So even when it's almost 4 stories, 319 meters, it doesn't impinge on the buildings that are on Sinclair that face the 403. So it works out very nice for it couldn't be a better design for this property, and to get this kind of an employer who treats the employees the way they do, and people are going to be clamoring to work there. As Councillor Celeste said, where do you go to get hired? This is a well-known company, very good with its employers. It's a great addition to the city. wholeheartedly support this and thank staff for how hard they worked to bring this into fruition with the planner, they all have a relationship with from previous developments, works very well. And thanks for bringing them to us. Thank you very much.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
You know, I've got a big grin on my face on this development. It's a perfect fit. It's very impressive. You can tell there's been a lot of thought put into it. And I certainly hope that all the consideration and thought that goes into this helps set the standards on our future builds. I'm just going to welcome this to Brantford. It's brings us all the best of the best, though. That's all I can say.
Councillor Selesny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's exciting to see this. When I look at this building, you think you're driving down the QEW towards Hamilton or towards Toronto. You see this type of a build there. And it's now getting that far out from the GTA, which is good. It's coming into here and hopefully, as Councillor Van Tilburg says, it sets a standard because we've got a lot of 403 frontage coming in the expansion lands on a lot of opportunity there to do very similar builds. And hopefully this spurs others to look at the area, and I think sets the expectation of what we're expecting to see when they do build. So I'm really pleased to support this. I'm very happy, looking forward to it getting in the air.
Set the timer, I'll speak to it. Yeah, I as well am extremely excited by this development because we've seen a lot of development applications over the last 4 or 5 years, and generally they've been, either commercial, residential, or industrial, many times logistics, which create good jobs and builds on our local economy. But to see an application like this, which are in essence white collar head office jobs, which is really needed in our community, kind of round out our workforce and round out the diversity of our local population and the employment opportunities that are available here. But also the building physically being where it is, which is kind of on the eastern gateway of our city on the 403, it's going to make a statement, much like the other buildings in the area, the hotels, the Brimage Logistic, those buildings that Vicano built on the south side of the highway. It's going to create a very impressive entry point to our community. And also for many of those thousands each day that pass through our community on the 403, it's going to make a statement. And because the building it's a very impressive building. And as I said, it's exactly the type of development that you would want on this lot with its exposure to the 403. Just think, you're coming down, you see hotels, you see this head office, then you see Costco. That's going to be quite an impact. And also, I think it's also important to note why it is that they have come here. And I have spoken to the owners of this business. They're very dynamic business people. They're very ambitious and very entrepreneurial. But one of the main reasons they've come to Brantford, I can't speak for them, but having spoken to them, I don't think they'd be upset with me saying this, is the fact that we have an airport here. They, in fact, are using one of the hangars up there that previously was used by Westcast. It's kind of interesting because one of the main reasons why Westcast in the 80s relocated their head office to Brantford was because of the airport. So I think this demonstrates to the community, one, that we're a viable, attractive community for more than the type of industrial activity we've seen here in the last 2 decades. That others outside of the community recognize that and want to locate here for their business, and also demonstrates the importance of having a viable airport, and that presents a very attractive feature to attract these kinds of businesses. So I can't praise this proposal enough, and as I said, extremely happy along with the other committee members that we have this before us. With that, I'll call the vote.
Item 4.1 carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 6-0. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Secoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, and Van Tilburg.
All right, so we have no other presentations or delegations. We've already dealt with the other two items. We have no notices of motion, so the March Planning Committee meeting is hereby adjourned.